My name is Megan Collins, and last night I found my 7-year-old daughter locked in our basement by my own family. My father said she needed to be taught a lesson, and my sister laughed while my mother looked the other way. I thought they came to help us, but what they really did was destroy the only piece I had left. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels. Now let me tell you how everything began to fall apart inside the walls of my own home. They said it would be temporary. Just a couple of months while Rachel figured things out after her divorce. My parents, well, they were only supposed to stay until Dad recovered from his back surgery. That was 4 months ago. Now, every night feels like I'm walking into a house I don't recognize. And last night changed everything. I got home late from a work meeting, the kind that drags past 9 where no one wants to be there but everyone's too polite to leave first. I was exhausted, shoes in hand, trying not to wake anyone, but the silence felt wrong. Still, too still. "Emma," I called softly as I dropped my bag by the stairs. No answer. That's when I saw Rachel standing at the kitchen island, swirling a glass of wine like we were hosting a dinner party. She looked smug. I don't know how else to describe it. Her eyes flicked toward the basement door just behind her. "She's down there," she said, like it was normal, like she was talking about the dog. "What?" My heart pounded. I moved past her, reaching for the door, but it was locked from the outside. Then I heard her, my daughter, my baby, crying. "Mama!" The sound sliced through me. I turned to Rachel, who didn't flinch. "Why is she locked in the basement?" "She took Maddie's toys," Rachel said, raising an eyebrow. "And then she lied about it." I blinked, trying to comprehend. Maddie was Rachel's daughter, a sweet kid. But since moving in, she'd become territorial with her things, especially around Emma. We'd been working through it, sharing boundaries, all that. I pounded on the door. "Emma, it's okay, Mommy's here." "Leave her there for a while," came another voice behind me, my father, standing at the hallway entrance, arms crossed like he was guarding a vault. "She needs to learn respect," he said flatly. "That kind of behavior. It's not going to fly." "She's 7, I snapped. "You locked a child in the dark because of a toy?" "She needs discipline," he replied. "You've been too soft on her, that's the problem." Too soft. I felt like I'd left the real world and walked into a parallel one. One where the people I'd grown up trusting had rewritten the rules while I wasn't looking. I found the spare key in the drawer and opened the door myself. Emma rushed out, sobbing, eyes wide in terror. Her arms wrapped around my waist so tight I couldn't breathe. Her little fingers trembled against my blouse. "Mommy, it was so dark." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, she was down there for what, 10 minutes? She made Maddie cry. Actions have consequences." "And you think this is appropriate?" I asked, my voice rising. "Who the hell do you think you are?" My mother emerged from the den just then, holding a mug of tea like she was immune to the chaos. "Don't overreact, Megan," she said, settling into a chair like this with some mild disagreement. "Kids need boundaries." Boundaries? Is that what they called it now? Psychological warfare disguised as parenting advice? I took Emma upstairs, her face buried in my chest the whole way. When I laid her in bed, she refused to let go. "I was so scared," she whispered. I stroked her hair, trying to keep my own fear from leaking into my voice. "You're safe now, I promise." But I knew I couldn't keep that promise. Not while they were still under my roof. I sat in the hallway for hours after she fell asleep, staring at the guest room doors, trying to piece it together. When had my house stopped being mine? When had my family crossed the line from visitors to invaders? I used to believe family meant safety, warmth, home. But last night, in that one sickening moment, I realized something that shattered me. My family was the danger I never saw coming. By morning, the house smelled like bacon. It was surreal, how the ordinary could still push through after a night like that. My father was in the kitchen frying eggs, humming to himself. My mother was buttering toast like nothing had happened. Rachel poured orange juice and smiled at her daughter, Maddie, as if she hadn't smirked while locking my child in a dark basement. I didn't say a word to any of them. Emma hadn't slept a wink. She clung to me all night like a shadow, waking up every hour with a start, mumbling, "It's still locked, right?" I told her the truth. No, sweetheart, it's not. Mommy opened it. You're safe now, but even I didn't believe it. I skipped the kitchen entirely and buckled Emma into the backseat of my car. Her backpack was clutched to her chest like armor. Where are we going? She asked quietly. Just a little visit, I said gently. To a place where people help you talk about hard things. Her brow furrowed. Am I in trouble? My chest tightened. No, baby, not at all. No one's mad at you. Except me. I was furious, just not at her. Downtown Pittsburgh was gray and sleepy that morning. Traffic was light, but my thoughts were anything but. I'd barely slept. My mind kept circling back to one thing, how calm they were, how utterly undisturbed. What kind of person locks a child in the dark and then makes bacon the next morning? The therapist's office sat on the second floor of a brick building with ivy crawling along the edges. A placard by the door read Dr. Elena Reyes, Child and Family Counseling. The waiting room was soft and clean, pale yellow walls, bookshelves filled with picture books and plush toys. Peaceful, like a place where wounds go to be named. Emma sat on my lap, picking at her sleeve. When Dr. Reyes appeared, a petite woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an even kinder voice, Emma flinched. I'm here to talk about feelings, she said gently, crouching to Emma's level. Would you like to color with me while we talk? Emma nodded without speaking. They disappeared into the office, and I stayed behind, my hands trembling slightly in my lap. I stared out the window at the bus stop below, watching strangers shuffle through their morning routines. No one knew what had happened in my house last night. No one could tell just by looking that my daughter had spent the night afraid of her own family. It was like holding a secret that weighed 1,000 pounds. After 40 minutes, Dr. Reyes came out alone. She didn't say much, she admitted, sitting beside me. But that's okay. Silence is still information. My throat was dry. Did she tell you what happened? She mentioned the dark, the door. She used the word trapped. I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. Megan, she said gently, this is emotional trauma, and it's not minor. What she experienced, being locked away by adults she trusts, it's a betrayal of safety. That matters. I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. She needs consistency, safety, and for the time being she needs distance from anyone involved in that event. Distance, the word echoed. I can't just kick them out, I said finally. Not without warning. Dr. Reyes hesitated. Then you need a plan, because what happened is not just concerning, it's potentially reportable. My heart clenched. You mean to child services? I mean, if Emma were in a school or daycare and this had happened there, it would already be reported. She handed me a card. If you need legal or protective support, this office has contacts. You're not alone. I thanked her and returned to the car. Emma was quiet on the ride home. Not sad, just distant, like she was trying to shrink herself, make less noise, take up less space. When we got back, the house was louder. Rachel had company, 2 friends from her yoga class, their kids already running wild through the living room. My mother was pouring mimosas. My father had turned up the football game so loud I could hear it through the front door. They hadn't even noticed we were gone. I took Emma straight upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and pulled the comforter over us both. She curled into me and finally drifted off. And I just lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, wondering when this house stopped being a home and became a battlefield I didn't sign up for. But something inside me clicked into place. It wasn't just about what they did last night. It was the brunch, the mimosas, the laughter echoing through a house where my daughter had cried for help. They were never going to say sorry, and I was done waiting. That night, I didn't even bother with dinner. Emma picked at a grilled cheese while I sat beside her on the couch, watching cartoons we both weren't really paying attention to. Her eyes looked hollow. Every loud noise in the house made her flinch. Rachel's laughter, my dad's booming voice, the crash of something breaking downstairs. I muted the volume and told her it was just the wind, but we both knew it was. Once she was asleep, finally curled up beside me on the pullout in the guest room, because she couldn't bear to be alone, I stepped into the hallway and closed the door softly behind me. My heart was pounding. It felt wrong to call the police, but it felt worse not to. I tiptoed downstairs, avoiding creaky spots, and sat at the far end of the couch, as far from my father and the football game as I could get. He didn't look up when I passed. Rachel was sprawled in an armchair scrolling on her phone, while her friends had left a battlefield of juice boxes and cracker crumbs in their wake. I slipped into the kitchen, locked the back door behind me, and pulled out my phone. The Pittsburgh Police Department's non-emergency number rang 3 times before a calm female voice answered. "Hi," I said quietly, eyes flicking over my shoulder toward the hallway. "I have a question about something that happened at my home." She asked me a few questions to confirm I wasn't in danger, then listened patiently as I told her about Emma, how she was locked in the basement, how the adults involved were still living in my house, how I didn't know what to do. Her voice didn't change, but her tone softened. "Ma'am, that qualifies as unlawful confinement of a minor. It is reportable." "I don't want to make this bigger than it is," I said quickly. It's my family. I understand. But if your child was in distress and other adults intentionally put her in harm's way—" "They did," I whispered. "She was terrified. It wasn't just punishment, it was cruel." She walked me through options, filing a report, requesting a welfare check, speaking to Child Protective Services. But one sentence stuck with me more than the rest. "You have a right to protect your child, even if it's from people you share a bloodline with." That line nearly broke me. I thanked her, wrote down a few case numbers she gave me, and hung up. When I turned around, my mother was standing at the kitchen threshold, arms crossed. "Who were you talking to?" Her tone was casual, but her eyes were sharp. "Just looking into some things," I replied, walking past her. "You know," she called after me, "a good mother doesn't escalate. A good mother keeps the family together." I stopped in my tracks, spun around. "I am being a good mother," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm doing the one thing none of you ever did, putting Emma first." She rolled her eyes. "So dramatic. It was one time, Megan. You're making it a whole crusade." I didn't answer. I just walked upstairs, hand on the railing to steady myself, and gently eased back into the guest room. Emma stirred in her sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed and smoothed her hair, trying not to let the fury shaking inside me touch her dreams. That night, after she was sound asleep, I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into the neighborhood forum, the kind filled with grumpy posts about trash pickup and lost cats, and searched for legal advice threads. Parents recommending child advocates, reviews on family law attorneys. One comment led to another, and before I knew it, I was deep into a thread titled, "What to Do When Your Family Becomes Unsafe Under Your Own Roof." I bookmarked every resource, every number, every name. Then I opened the security camera app on my phone, scrolled back to the footage from last night, watched as Rachel pushed Emma toward the basement door, watched as my father stood there with his arms folded, watched as Emma cried and no one moved. I saved the clip, downloaded it twice, labeled it, "Evidence Emma Basement." If they thought I was going to let this slide, they didn't know me as well as they thought they did. 2 uniformed officers, one older, one younger, standing calmly on the porch with hands folded in front of them. The sight of them jolted something in my chest, like a warning bell and a lifeline all at once. Rachel, wearing leggings and yesterday's mascara, answered the door with a scowl. "Can I help you?" "We're here to speak with Megan Collins," the older officer said, his tone polite but firm. Rachel's eyes darted behind them and landed on me at the end of the hallway. I stepped forward. "I'm Megan," I said. My voice was steadier than I expected. "May we come in?" the younger officer asked. Rachel crossed her arms. "What is this about?" "Family matter," the older one said simply. "We've been asked to conduct a wellness check and review some evidence provided by the resident." Rachel turned to me, eyes narrowed. "You really called the cops on your own family?" "I called for my daughter," I said. "You locked her in the basement." "Over a toy," she shouted. "You're seriously doing this?" Before I could answer, my father appeared behind her, arms crossed, like he'd just been waiting for his moment. "Don't say another word," he warned Rachel, then looked to the officers. "We're not under arrest. This is a private matter." "We're not here to arrest anyone," the older officer replied. "We're here to ensure the safety of a child who may have been placed in harm's way." They followed me into the living room. I had already preloaded the footage on the laptop and placed Emma's pediatric report and photos of her bruised shoulder from that night on the coffee table. I didn't speak. I let the video play. The room was quiet except for Emma's voice on the recording. "Mama, I'm scared. Please don't leave me." The younger officer winced. When the footage ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Was the child restrained or otherwise physically prevented from exiting that space herself? The older one asked. "Yes," I said. "The door was locked from the outside." He nodded. "We're going to make a few calls. Would you be comfortable with us arranging a temporary safety plan through protective services? You'd remain the primary guardian, but your relatives would be legally required to vacate within 48 hours. Rachel erupted. "Are you kidding me? She's punishing us because her kid can't share a few stupid toys. She's traumatized," I snapped. "You left her alone in the dark, screaming, and none of you cared." My father stood now, his voice rising. "This is ridiculous. We were disciplining her. Megan, you're letting this get out of hand." The younger officer stepped between us. "Sir, we've reviewed the footage. That's not discipline, that's confinement." "And the bruises," I added. "She has a mark on her arm from when Rachel grabbed her." Rachel gasped. "That's a lie, she fell." The officers exchanged a glance. The older one spoke again. "Ma'am, we'll be filing an incident report today, and we are formally requesting that Rachel and any other non-custodial adults vacate this home within 48 hours. A social worker will follow up." My mother, who had remained quiet until now, looked up from her coffee cup like she'd just tuned into the conversation. "You're tearing this family apart," she said, shaking her head, "over some hurt feelings and a tantrum." "No," I said. "I'm saving what's left of it." I was shaking, not with fear, but with relief. The officers handed Rachel a printed notice and explained the procedure. She protested, of course, called it unfair, threatened legal action. My father tried to intimidate the older officer, stepping forward with that same looming presence that used to silence me as a kid. But the officer didn't flinch. "Sir, if you continue to raise your voice, we will escort you off the premises immediately." That shut him up. I signed a few documents, including a statement verifying the footage and Emma's injuries. Then I escorted the officers to the door and thanked them, probably more emotionally than I should have. When the door closed behind them, I turned to face the hallway. Rachel's door slammed. My father disappeared into the den, and I walked upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and for the first time in weeks, I slept. The silence was almost too loud. After the officers left and the 48-hour clock started ticking, Rachel stopped speaking to me entirely. My mother packed up her herbal teas and passive aggression. My father disappeared into the basement, oh, the irony, and stayed there for hours at a time, only emerging to grunt at the television. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt suspended, waiting, like the aftermath of a storm that promised another. Emma clung to me like a second shadow. She wouldn't go upstairs alone, wouldn't enter the bathroom unless I was standing in the hallway. Even her laughter, which once rang through the house like wind chimes, was gone. We ate pancakes for dinner because it was the only thing she asked for. I let her smother them in syrup and chocolate chips. Let her skip brushing her hair. Let her stay curled on the couch watching her favorite animated movie on repeat. Whatever helped her feel safe, I did it. But by the third night, the toll started to show. She whimpered in her sleep, small fists gripping my sleeve. And when the heater kicked on with a loud thunk, she bolted upright, gasping, tears spilling down her cheeks before I could even reach for her. "Mama, don't let them put me back," she sobbed. "Don't let them." I wrapped my arms around her and whispered the same promise over and over. "No one will ever lock you away again, ever." But in the dark, even my voice felt too small. The next morning, the house was oddly cheerful. Rachel was gone. Completely. Her room stripped, drawers empty, even the cracked lamp she always claimed wasn't hers vanished. Maddie's toys were gone too. The echo in that bedroom felt like an exorcism. My father left without a word later that afternoon. Slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall in the hallway. My mother trailed behind him like a silent ghost, purse clutched, saying nothing. She didn't even look at me. Not even goodbye. Just like that, they were gone. No apologies, no recognition. Just silence. I stood in the kitchen, staring at their empty coffee mugs still in the sink, and for a second I didn't feel relief, I felt grief. Not for them, but for the version of them I used to believe in. The house was quiet that night. too quiet. Emma sat across from me at the table, poking at a slice of pizza. "Can I sleep in your bed again?" "Of course," I said, "for as long as you need." Her little voice wobbled. "Is it okay if I'm still scared?" I walked around the table, knelt beside her chair, and tucked her hair behind her ear. "It's okay to feel everything," I whispered. "Scared, sad, angry, all of it." She leaned into me. "I don't like this house anymore." I knew what she meant. Because neither did I. The walls still echoed with voices I didn't invite. The hallway felt like a crime scene. Even the kitchen table felt stained with conversations I wished I could unhear. I sat in my bedroom that night, scrolling through listings online, houses for rent, apartments for lease, towns I'd never dared to dream about before. Asheville, North Carolina. Quaint homes nestled near the mountains. A school district with good reviews. A job board full of remote tech openings. It felt like fantasy. But maybe fantasy was better than this haunted quiet. That night, while Emma finally slept beside me, I reached out to a realtor I didn't know, in a town I'd never been, and wrote one sentence I never thought I'd type. "Hi, I'm looking to sell my home." Immediately. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and second chances. I'd chosen it at random, someplace across town, far from the neighborhood where people still waved politely at my father and gossiped with Rachel about school fundraisers. This place was different. Brick walls, soft jazz humming through the speakers, and no memories waiting in the corners to ambush me. I ordered a chai latte and found a small table by the window. The realtor was already there, tapping on her iPad, dressed in smart boots and a no-nonsense gray coat. Her name was Elena. "You must be Megan," she said warmly, standing to shake my hand. It wasn't the greeting that got me, it was her eyes. She didn't look at me like a broken thing or a panicked seller. She looked at me like someone who knew what it meant to leave the past behind. We sat down and I slid a folder across the table with the house specs inside. Square footage, estimated market value. A few pictures from happier years, Emma in the backyard, barefoot in autumn leaves. "I'm not just selling a property," I said quietly. "I'm leaving a history I can't carry anymore." Elena nodded. She didn't push. She didn't ask questions. She just opened her tablet and got to work. "We can list within a week," she said after a few minutes. "The market's moving fast and your neighborhood is desirable, but I'm guessing speed matters to you more than price." I nodded. "I need to be out before the past tries to follow me." Elena smiled gently. "Then let's get to work." I signed the paperwork, took a breath, and pressed send on a draft I'd written but never thought I'd actually deliver. A text to my mother. "I'm selling the house. Emma and I are moving. Please do not contact me unless it's necessary." Her reply came within minutes. "We thought family mattered to you. Guess we were wrong. No apology, no reflection. Just the same old guilt dressed in cold words." I didn't reply. I just blocked her number. And then, for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. On the drive home, Emma was unusually quiet in the back seat, drawing on her sketchpad. I glanced in the mirror and saw the page. A house with thick black lines over the windows and a gray storm cloud hovering above it. My chest ached. When we got home, I tucked her in and kissed her forehead. Then I found the strength to do what I'd been putting off, opening the guest closet in the hallway. It was where I kept things I didn't know what to do with. Photos. Gifts. Little relics from when my family still felt like home. I found a shoebox of Emma's old drawings, ones she made before things went dark. Bright suns, stick figure families, the house with big windows and a rainbow sky. And then a series of recent ones. Basement walls, locked doors, angry faces with no eyes. My hand trembled as I picked up the last one. It was a picture of her and me holding hands in front of a house with no windows at all, just a red X on the roof. She had drawn herself without a mouth. I sat on the floor and cried. Not for me, for her, for the way this house had rewritten the way she saw the world. For every night she flinched at the heater, for every moment I failed to stop it sooner. That night I called Dr. Reyes again. "I think she needs something more," I said. "Not just talk, something gentler, slower." "Let me connect you with an art therapist," she replied. "Someone who speaks her language." It was the first step in what I knew would be a long road, but at least now we were on it, together. The next morning, Emma woke up, stretched, and looked at me. "I don't don't want to live here anymore, she said, just like that, like she'd been rehearsing it. I didn't cry this time. I smiled, nodded, pulled her close and whispered, "Neither do I, sweetheart. We're getting out." And this time I meant it. The knock was too loud. It wasn't polite or tentative. It was the kind of knock that knew its power. The kind that demanded an answer, not because it deserved one, but because it had always expected one. I froze halfway down the stairs, Emma's favorite blanket still in my hands. We were packing clothes, board games, photo albums, the pieces of our life we actually wanted to take with us. The house had never felt so empty or so full of tension. Then the doorbell rang, once, twice, 3 times. I peeked through the curtain and every hair on my body stood up. My father was on the porch. Behind him, my mother. And behind them, a moving van, not ours, theirs. I didn't open the door. I didn't need to. My father stepped forward, palms raised like he was playing peacekeeper. "Megan, we just need to talk." My mother stayed behind him, arms crossed, face pinched with that same expression she wore when I brought home a B+ in geometry sophomore year. From inside the house, Emma called out, "Mom." I turned my head just enough to answer, "Stay upstairs, sweetheart." I stepped back from the door, heart pounding. But I wasn't afraid, not this time. This time I was angry. "Megan," my father's voice boomed through the door. "We're here to help. You don't have to do this." Do what? Reclaim my sanity. Protect my child. Remove the rot from my life. I said nothing. My phone buzzed. A message from a number I'd blocked and recently unblocked, thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd misjudged. It was from Rachel. "You're really doing this, selling our family's home over a tantrum." Our family's home. I nearly laughed. They had rewritten every part of this story in their heads. They were the victims now. I was the villain. Emma's terror, inconvenient, forgettable. My father started knocking again, harder this time. "We need to store some things. You have space. It's still our house, too." That word again. I texted one sentence to the non-emergency officer I'd spoken with before. "They're back, refusing to leave." Then I waited. I didn't answer the door. I didn't engage. I watched as my mother pulled out her phone, likely calling some cousin or aunt to spin another story about how I'd lost my mind or needed prayer. The van behind them stayed parked like a threat, like a dare. After 10 minutes of silence on my end, my father's voice rose. "You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, you were a mess after the divorce. Don't forget who took you in." I blinked. Who took me in? They'd moved into my house. "We helped raise that girl," he continued. "Now you're just cutting us off." I stepped forward, calm as glass, and I locked the deadbolt. My mother gasped like I'd slapped her through the wood. Seconds later, Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, her little face pale. "Are they gone?" she asked. "Almost," I said. "The officers arrived 15 minutes later. They asked my parents politely to leave. My father tried to argue, said the house was shared property. The officers corrected him, firmly. My mother tried to plead. We just want to be part of her life." "She's a child," I said from the threshold. "Not your property, and this house, it was never yours." Rachel sent a final message that night. No words, just a photo of Emma taken months ago in the backyard, posted on social media with a caption that read, "Missing our sunshine, family should be forever." The implication was clear. I screenshotted it. Then I blocked her again, for good this time. That night I sat on the living room floor, the walls bare, the boxes packed, the ghosts quiet. Emma fell asleep beside me on the rug, a coloring book in her hands. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there and listened to the silence I had fought for. And I knew I had done the right thing. Moving day was nothing like the movies. There were no teary goodbyes, no nostalgic glances over my shoulder as we pulled out of the driveway. Just the sound of tape ripping, boxes thudding, and the quiet rhythm of a police officer's boots pacing our front porch. He was there at my request. After the scene with my parents and Rachel's passive-aggressive stunt online, I wasn't taking any chances. I wanted the last memory in that house to be ours, not theirs. Officer Bell, tall, soft-spoken, mid-40s, stood by the door while the movers did their job. He nodded when I passed, didn't ask for details, didn't make it feel dramatic. Just safe. Emma stayed upstairs for most of the morning, watching cartoons on my phone, her favorite stuffed cat tucked firmly under one arm. I checked in on her every half hour. "You okay, love?" I whispered. She nodded, small but brave. "Are we going to the mountain house now?" I smiled. Yep, just a few more boxes. The cottage in Asheville wasn't fancy. It didn't have a fireplace or a garden or that Pinterest-perfect charm, but it had light, so much light. Tall windows, pale wooden floors, a porch with chipped paint and endless sky. It felt like oxygen. The drive was long. 8 hours split into 2 days, with Emma falling asleep halfway through Pennsylvania and waking up in Virginia asking if we were still on Earth. We crossed into North Carolina just before sunset, and when we pulled into the graveled driveway of our new home, Emma whispered, "It doesn't look scary." "No," I said softly. "It doesn't." The inside smelled like lemon oil and fresh paint. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a tiny dining nook that would barely fit a table for 2. But I didn't need space. I needed peace. Emma ran through the empty rooms, barefoot, twirling like she used to before her smile learned how to hide. Her giggle echoed against the blank walls, and I swear, it sounded like wind chimes. That night we slept on an air mattress in the living room, curled under mismatched blankets, windows cracked open to let the mountain breeze drift in. I stared at the ceiling and listened to Emma breathe. Not flinch, not cry, just breathe. The next morning I took my first work call from the porch, laptop balanced on my knees, coffee in hand. Remote tech support for a startup out of Boston. Boring, stable, and exactly what I needed. Emma started school the following Monday. She held my hand a little tighter than usual at drop-off, but she didn't cry. Her new teacher, Ms. Lane, crouched beside her with a big smile and a small sunflower hair clip to match the one I'd pinned in Emma's hair that morning. By lunch, I got a picture. Emma at a table with 3 other girls, crayons scattered everywhere, smiling. Smiling. That night, we made spaghetti and ate it on the floor of our new kitchen. "This feels like a picnic," she said between bites. "It kind of is," I laughed. "Just with more sauce on the floor." And when she finally fell asleep, her stuffed cat tucked beside her, I sat on the porch again, stars above me, silence around me. I should have felt scared. Alone, but I didn't. I felt capable, maybe for the first time in years. We had done it. We were here, and we were safe. The envelope was plain, no return address, no markings, just my name, Megan Collins, written in the sharp, slanted handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. I found it on the porch, tucked halfway under the welcome mat, like whoever left it didn't want to be seen. At first, I told myself it could have been from anyone, a neighbor, a package mix-up, a school form I missed. But when I picked it up, my hands went cold, because I knew. Inside was a single sheet of paper, no greeting, no signature, just one line. "I know where you are now. We need to resume communication like family." The words were like a virus. Small, silent, and designed to infect everything I'd just rebuilt. I didn't show it to Emma. I didn't panic. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the kitchen sink, staring out at the trees swaying in the breeze like nothing had changed. But everything had. I waited until Emma was asleep, then walked 2 houses down to Dan's place. Dan, the carpenter neighbor who helped us carry our bookshelf inside on day 1. The one who fixed the leaky faucet before I even had the courage to ask. The one who started leaving wildflowers on our porch in a mason jar just because. I hadn't planned on getting close to anyone, especially not a man, but Dan, he felt safe. When he opened the door, he looked concerned. "You okay?" I held up the letter. He read it once, then again, his jaw clenched. "Is it him?" he asked. I nodded. Dan stepped aside to let me in, his small kitchen smelling faintly of cedar and lemon balm. He poured me tea and sat across from me, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. "You need a lawyer," he said. "I know. You want me to install cameras? I can do that tomorrow. I might take you up on it." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dan leaned forward, voice low and firm. "You don't owe them anything, not a phone call, not a conversation, not 1 second of your peace." That's when I realized I wasn't afraid. I was angry. Angry that after everything, he still thought he had access. That just knowing where I lived gave him a right to speak, to demand, to threaten under the mask of family. I went home and sat at the kitchen table, the letter in front of me. I could have ignored it, thrown it away, filed for legal help and let the system do its job. But I wanted him to feel it. I wrote a response in sharp, clear handwriting, my tone as cold as his. "If you ever contact me or my daughter again, By letter, by phone, or in person. I will make sure it's the last thing you regret. We are not a family. We are survivors of one." I sealed the envelope, marked it returned to sender, and dropped it in the mailbox before dawn. The next day, I filed a no-contact order. Dan drove me to the courthouse and waited outside just in case. The judge reviewed the letter, the history, the police reports. When he granted the order on grounds of endangerment, I felt something shift in my chest. Not relief, power. It wasn't just paper. It was a boundary carved into stone. The quiet didn't last long. 3 days after the no-contact order was granted, I got a text from a friend back in Pittsburgh, Melissa, one of the only people who'd ever questioned the way my family treated me. The message said, "Did you see this? Is this Emma?" Attached was a screenshot. It was a photo of Emma from last year, before the basement, before the therapy, before the move. She was standing in front of our old swing set, her hair in braids, smiling wide. The caption read, "Some people rip families apart because they need someone to blame. We still miss our girl. Blood is thicker Thanleys." It came from an account named New Roots Mama. No profile picture, no followers, but the IP address. I didn't need it traced. I knew it was Rachel. Her fingerprints were all over the guilt, the faux spiritual hashtags, the passive aggression wrapped in maternal martyrdom. I felt the heat rise in my chest like a warning flare. She hadn't just violated the no-contact boundary. She had posted Emma's face to bait a response, to twist a narrative that never belonged to her. I stared at the photo for a long time, at Emma's innocent smile, frozen in a time before everything cracked, and something in me snapped, but not the way it used to. Not into silence, not into fear. This time I broke open in the direction of truth. I logged into my own account, one I hadn't used in over a year, and posted a reply publicly, tagging the burner account for everyone to see. My message was short, simple, but deadly clear. "This is my daughter, not your leverage. You locked her in a basement and then smiled about it. I have evidence, witnesses, and a court order. Keep her name out of your mouth and off your feed." Not your narrative. Within minutes, my inbox exploded. Not with trolls, with support. Women from my old neighborhood, moms from Emma's former school, even people I didn't know, strangers who'd seen situations just like mine and had been waiting for someone else to say it out loud. Comments poured in beneath the post. "Good for you. They don't get to rewrite what they did. Protect that baby. You're doing everything right." Rachel deleted the account within the hour, but the wave had already hit. My old neighbor, Lauren, messaged me privately. "We always wondered why Emma seemed so withdrawn. I'm sorry I didn't ask. I'm so sorry, Megan." That apology meant more than she could have known. Because silence is heavy, but complicit silence, it buries you. By sundown, I filed a formal complaint for social media harassment tied to a violation of the no-contact order. I attached the screenshots, the timestamps, the IP trace I'd run through a contact Dan knew. That night, I read Emma a bedtime story and kissed her forehead, my voice steady, my hand gentle. She was sleeping soundly now. No flinches, no whispers of fear. And when I checked my email before bed, there it was, a follow-up from the family court office. "Your harassment documentation has been accepted. The protective order remains active. Further attempts at contact may lead to formal charges." I leaned back in my chair, the stars bright over the mountains outside. They had tried everything: guilt, control, invasion, narrative theft. But none of it worked anymore, because I was no longer trying to escape the past. I was defeating it. And this time I wasn't hiding behind walls or excuses or silence. This time I was standing in the open, with the truth at my side, and Emma behind me, safe and free. We didn't tell anyone we were going. I packed the car with 2 sleeping bags, a tent we'd never used, and enough snacks to make Emma squeal with excitement. There was no agenda, no plan, no destination besides a way. Just us, the open road, and a little yellow notebook I'd filled with maps and trail names. The Blue Ridge Mountains rose like quiet giants in the distance, wrapped in early autumn gold and thick mist. As we drove deeper into the hills, Emma pressed her face to the window, her eyes wide with wonder. "Do bears live here?" she whispered. "Yes," I said with a smile. "But they're not interested in us. They like to be left alone. Like us." I reached across the console and squeezed her hand. "Exactly like us." We arrived at a small, secluded campsite just before sunset. Dan had helped me find it. He said it was quiet but not too quiet, and perfect for beginners who need a little magic. He wasn't wrong. Our spot was tucked between two towering pines, with a view of a distant ridge and a small, rippling creek that sang us to sleep. Emma helped me pitch the tent, her laughter echoing through the trees when we both got tangled in the canvas. For dinner, we roasted hot dogs over the fire and told ghost stories that were more silly than scary. Later, under a sky full of stars, I watched her roast a marshmallow with such focus you'd think it was a science experiment. "Mom," she said suddenly, her face lit by firelight, "do you think bad people know they're bad?" I blinked. She wasn't asking about fairy tale villains. She was asking about them. I set my marshmallow down and looked at her. "I think some people don't want to know," I said gently, "because if they admit what they did was wrong, they'd have to feel sorry, and that takes courage." She nodded slowly, then added, "I don't think I want to see them again, ever." I reached over and wrapped her in my arms. "You don't have to, that's not your job. Your job is to grow up free, safe, happy." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "Okay." We sat like that for a long time, just listening to the crackle of the fire and the hush of the trees. And for the first time since all of it began, the basement, the bruises, the betrayal, I didn't feel like I was running anymore. I felt still, solid, rooted. We slept side by side in the tent that night, the chill air turning our breath into tiny clouds. Emma didn't whimper in her sleep. She didn't cling or cry out. She just breathed, soft and steady. I woke before dawn, stepped outside with my thermos, and watched the sky turn from deep blue to blush pink over the ridgeline. There were no text alerts, no threats, no social media shadows, just birdsong and the distant hum of wind through pine needles. And peace. Real, unedited, unborrowed peace. Later that morning, we hiked a short trail that ended at a lookout point. Emma raced ahead, arms out like wings, her laughter echoing over the valley. She turned to me, cheeks flushed, and shouted, "Mama, I feel like I'm flying." And I shouted back without even thinking, "Me too, baby, me too." We stayed one more night before heading back to the cottage. The trip wasn't long. It wasn't grand, but it was ours. It was proof. Proof that the fear didn't win. That silence didn't break us. That blood wasn't thicker than love. When we got home, I unpacked slowly, holding every item like a souvenir from a war survived. The house smelled like lavender and lemon oil. Emma hung a pinecone on the front porch for luck, and I caught myself smiling as I watched her do it. That night she asked to sleep in her own bed. I kissed her goodnight, turned off the light, and stood in the doorway for a few minutes just listening. She didn't stir once. She had found her peace. And so had I. 6 months passed like breath on glass, quiet, slow, and delicate. Emma no longer asked about them. Not her grandparents. Not Rachel. Not the old house with its shadows and locked doors. It was as though her mind had gently tucked those memories into a drawer she didn't need to open anymore. And I didn't ask. I let her be. She was thriving. Her new school hosted a family roots day, and I nearly cried when she stood in front of her class, smiling, holding a drawing she made herself, me, her, and Dan, standing beneath a tree with purple leaves. She titled it, "Safe People." Her teacher told me afterward, "Emma said her family is small but really strong." I had to step outside to keep from falling apart. At home, her fears had melted into something softer. Occasional bad dreams, sure, but she no longer jumped at loud noises or flinched when someone knocked on the door. She started sleeping with the window cracked open again. Started singing in the bath. Started being a child. And me. I joined a local writers group in town, mostly women, many of them survivors in their own quiet ways, divorces, illnesses, estrangements. We met in the back room of a bookstore every other Wednesday, drinking herbal tea and reading our pages aloud to people who actually listened. I brought a short piece once, just a vignette, about a woman in a yellow cottage learning to breathe again. When I finished reading it, the room was still. Then one woman, Sarah, whispered, "That felt like me." And suddenly I wasn't just surviving. I was connecting. I was living. Dan stayed. He didn't fix everything. He didn't rush in to save us. He didn't push, didn't prod, didn't demand to be the center of our story. Instead, he showed up. He helped Emma build a birdhouse from leftover wood scraps, taught her how to use a level, called her the boss every time she handed him a tool. He made us dinner on nights when I forgot what time was. He brought groceries when he knew I was too overwhelmed to admit I hadn't eaten a vegetable in days. And when the anniversary of the basement incident rolled around, he took Emma camping, just the two of them, so I could have one quiet night without pretending to be okay. I didn't expect him to become part of our rhythm, but he did. Gently, slowly, with reverence. One evening in early spring, he planted wildflowers along the side of the house, yellow, purple, and deep crimson. Emma helped him, her tiny hands in the soil, her laughter rising into the golden hour. When I stepped outside to watch, Dan looked up, wiped his hands on his jeans, and said, "They'll bloom stronger next year." I didn't know if he meant the flowers or us. Maybe both. The cottage began to feel less like a transition and more like a beginning. I painted the front door blue, hung a wind chime Emma made out of spoons and beads. We baked pies in the middle of the week, read books out loud after dinner, and danced to old music on rainy mornings. It was all so ordinary, and it was everything I'd ever wanted. One Sunday afternoon, I found Emma writing in a notebook on the porch. "What are you working on?" I asked. "A story," she said, grinning. I sat beside her, the sunlight warm on my back. "About what?" "About a girl who used to live in a storm, but now she lives in a garden." I swallowed hard. "Does the storm ever come back?" I asked softly. She shrugged. "Sometimes it tries, but she has a gate now, and people who help her shut it." I blinked fast and kissed her forehead. That night I sat with my own notebook and wrote for hours. Not about the pain, but about the after, about resilience, about peace, about what happens when the storm passes and you don't just survive, but you bloom. The house smelled like orange peel and old books, Emma's favorite scent blend, which she insisted on making every Sunday. She was home for the weekend, sprawled across the living room floor with college brochures in one hand and a pencil tucked behind her ear. The air was filled with low jazz, the kind she always said made her feel like a smart person in a movie. "Child psychology," she said suddenly, flipping one of the pamphlets toward me. "That's the major, I'm sure now." I smiled, letting the words soak in. She didn't say it for approval. She didn't need that anymore. She said it because her voice finally carried weight her own. "When did you know?" I asked. She didn't even pause. "When I realized some kids never get to say the scary things out loud." My chest tightened with pride and something deeper, gratitude maybe, that she had come through the darkness not just whole but purposeful. I thought back to the girl who used to scream in her sleep, the one who once whispered, "I don't want to live here anymore."